Hi guys, I wanted to show you this image that was shot on a phone. This is from the Huawei P20 Pro, and everyone that sort of follows my Facebook page and Instagram will know that I'm a bit of a fan of this camera phone. It's shoots a 40 megapixel raw photo. So I wanted to show you this particular image that I captured and show you how I edited it and basically eventually made a print which now hangs in the gallery. So this is the raw file. So I mean, it's incredible that you can get a phone that can take a 40 megapixel raw image. So it's a DNG file, and I've opened that up in Photoshop now. So sorry, not Photoshop. Go back. I opened it up in Capture One. So this is Capture One here. The image is pretty clean, pretty straightforward. I just held the phone in my hand and got down really close to the leaf. It didn't have to recompose anything. It was all just there as it was, and took the shot. Pretty simple. So I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to click on here first and zoom in. Now you can see at 100%. Whoopsie, here we go. 100%. It's a little bit soft. It's not perfectly sharp. There's a slight bit of movement there, but when you get towards the edges of the camera, you can see it's a little bit soft. So things I do in Capture One is I'll go in and find and fix up all the little issues. I'll click on chromatic aberration if there is any, just fix that. And I'll also look at the sharpness fall off, and I generally bring that up a fair bit and see if that can help with the softness on the edges. Now there also is a fair bit of light fall off with this. You can see that there's a slight vignette happening already, and we can increase that in post. We can get rid of that if we want to, but in this case I quite like the fact that it's naturally vignetting and it's giving us a nice concentrated look on the leaf itself. So I do that, got a little bit sharper, a little bit more accurate, and then I'll go into the color editor, into the advanced tab, click on that little icon there and select some of the different colors. So this one here is for these other background leaves, the orange. I want to just pull the saturation back on those a little bit because I want the leaf that the green leaf to be the sort of hero. And then I'm going to click on the green leaf and I'm going to increase the saturation on that a little bit, not too much, maybe a little bit more light in it as well, something like that. Okay, at that point I'll leave Capture One. I'll go into my output recipe here, and it's going to output it as a full size file, a TIFF 16-bit uncompressed. I'm going to use the profile DCAM 3, Joseph Holmes DCAM 3. It's going to go at 240 pixels per inch, and it's going to open up now in Photoshop CC 2018. I hadn't changed that for a while, so that's a good idea to fix that up. Okay, so that's ready to roll. So we'll just press the play button and hopefully it'll spit it out into Photoshop, and then we can work on what we're going to do there. Okay, I'm going to hit F on the keyboard just to get the full screen view, and now I'm going to duplicate that photograph and start making some adjustments to make it look a little bit better. Okay, now my Photoshop setup here, because I'm a left-hander, I generally do everything on the left-hand side, but obviously all these things would be over on the right-hand side for you guys. So Command J, duplicate the photograph. We're going to go up to Image and Apply Image, and we're going to change the channel from RGB to red. This is my old favorite. You'll probably know this one by now. I'm going to click on the mask, and we're going to select the channel down here as red and click the invert button. So now we've got a fairly dark, grungy look. I'm going to click OK, and there's our leaf looking even more interesting. But I'm just going to pull that back a little bit because I think it's starting to, we're losing a little bit of that shadow detail too much. But you can see it's giving us a really nice color on those background leaves, like so. So the next thing I want to do is I want to try and enhance that kind of roundness of those leaves, the background leaves. So I'm going to go in. I'm not going to add a layer mask to this layer and rub that away, because that'll just give us back the initial look, which I don't want. You can see that I don't want that so much. I wanted more, add light to whatever I've done now. So I'm going to go into my adjustments panel, and I'm going to select a curve, and I'm going to change the blend mode down to screen. Okay, that lightens it all up. I'm going to invert that, Command I or Control I. I'm going to B for brush, X on the keyboard to change my foreground color to white. And normally I do this at work, and I have a Wacom screen, 27 HD, and a Cintiq, and it makes it much easier to do all that sort of editing. But I'm going to change my opacity to 50% and the flow to 50%. So if I just hold in the Shift key and press 5, let's see, good one, maybe not, Tab, okay. Now there's this new smoothing function in Photoshop. I haven't mucked around with that yet, so I will get onto that as soon as I start doing more brushing. Now all I'm going to do here is I'm going to lighten up some of these areas. Let's drop that opacity down to 10%, and I want to kind of lighten the light areas only. So I'm going to give it more dimension. I want these leaves to look a little bit rounder. So anything that's already light, I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter again. Anything that we can just pull out and make the top of it lighter. It's sort of like, shading. If you're drawing a picture or something and you want to sort out the shading of it, you want to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional, and that's pretty much what I'm doing here. So I do this a bit with my images. I want to try and make them look a little bit more interesting, a bit rounder. So you can go through and do this, to your heart's content, and really add light where you want it to be and leave it out of other places. So if I turn that on and off, you'll see a bit of a difference. You can see now those leaves didn't come alive. I'm not going to go into this too much because there's you can spend a lot of time mucking around with that. The thing I'm thinking about now is this green leaf looks a little bit ordinary. I don't particularly like that color, so I'm just going to go back to my adjustments, go to hue saturation, click on the little hand, and click on there and just see what we got. We got cyans. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust that and make that a little bit more greeny yellow, sort of something like that, I guess. So let's turn that on and off and have a look. Yeah, that's much better. That's a little bit too cyan, and that's a nicer color. I'm not going to add any saturation to it just yet. Or maybe I will. Okay, let's do that. Let's add a bit of saturation, something like that. Okay, so at that point I'm thinking that it's starting to look a lot nicer. Still want to get a little bit more 3D-ness out of it, so I'm going to flatten a copy of those layers. So Command Option Shift E, which is a stamp visible, and I'm going to then go up to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, and I'm going to set my amount to say, let's go 30, radius 50, threshold 0. Now if I click the preview button, you'll see it really start to pop, but I don't want to actually add that everywhere. I just want to add it to select places. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to add a layer mask to that, this little icon here, and then I'm going to invert it. Now I'm going to zoom in a bit and select my brush tool, B on the keyboard, and using those same settings, I'm just going to start adding some of that sort of extra contrast and just through this leaf area, and it's sort of the same sort of thing. I'm wanting to enhance the look. I might increase the opacity to 50% so it happens a little bit quicker. So I'm just going over and I'm making some sections sharper than others. Well, not sharper, a bit more contrasty, I guess you could say. just bringing those things out, and especially areas like this where there's a little bit of water on there as well can look pretty cool, and these edges of the leaves and stuff like that. So what you're doing is by adding contrast, you're actually making these things look like they come forward more, which is kind of nice, and other areas will go back. So it's a good way to give that image a little bit more dimension and make things pop a little bit nicer. Now, a good friend of mine, Peter Eastway, I say he's a good friend, he may say otherwise, said that if you've got soft edges, soft corners, if the lens isn't great, just keep it dark, just hide it with a vignette, and I think that's pretty good advice. So in this case, with the Huawei, because it's not particularly sharp on the edges of the lens, it's good to keep that. I hate it when I do that. Stupid trackpads. I'm doing this just on the trackpad, everybody, which is pretty bad, but that's how I record my videos. Okay, go away, please. Okay, so I've just done that, and it's very subtle, but there's a slight increase in the poppiness of some of that. Now, the only other thing I would do is I would go in and replace these areas. I would go and fix up these areas. So let's say we're happy with that. We'll flatten it off. Command Shift E, and then I would just go in. Come on, whoopsie, hang on, turn that back on. Command Shift E. I'd go in. I'd do the lazy option. Shift L to change. If you got select the selection tool or any other tool, if you hold the Shift key down and select the shortcut, in this case L for lasso, it scrolls through. If you press the Shift key down, works with all the tools. So anyway, I'll just go in and do a nice little easy peasy thing around there, and just hit delete, and make sure when we hit delete it brings up the fill dialog box, and we're going to fill it with content aware. Click OK, and that's fixed it up really badly, but good enough, you know. I mean, it's a phone shot. Let's not get too carried away with ourselves. And you can see I'm doing this pretty quick now, so what I'll do is I'll make the selection. This one's going to be probably a bit dodge. I'll hit delete and return. So it's pretty quick. You know, I'm starting to see a little bit. There's a few issues with it, but you know, you can muck around. You know, you go back and get your stamp tool now, and you might just try and fix up some of these areas and try and get between those veins. You know, make it look a bit more realistic. You could come over, you know, out this way a bit if you really want to go crazy. Just come over this way and just add new veins wherever you want. I'm no botanist, so I'm probably being pretty awful to anyone that really cares about these sort of things, but such is life. It's pretty dodge anyway, but you get the idea. I'm sure you know how to clone things and make them look good. Okay, there we go. We're kind of getting there. I still think it may be a little bit, I don't know, it's not quite there color-wise. So what we might do is we'll go up to our adjustments, and we're going to do a channel mixer, because I wanted to just desaturate the background leaves a little bit more. I'm going to select monochrome, and we're going to drop the opacity back to, and looking at those background leaves to see where we're happy. Take it back to 0, bring it up, and I reckon about there's pretty good, 39%. Okay, and then X on the keyboard, bring the foreground color to black. And I'm just going to get a brush, and I'm going to set 100% opacity, Shift 0 gives me 100% flow. Right square bracket will increase my size of my brush, and I'm just going to make that, just brush it out. I'm being a little bit sloppy. Again, you would drop the size of your brush and get right into those corners properly, and trying not to go out over the lines. so on and so forth. Pretty simple stuff. So there, now when you look at that, it kind of makes, it's only subtle, but it makes that leaf stand out even more. I'm kind of happy with that. So let's flatten that. I'm thinking that this is the way I want to do it. I'm ready to go. So now I'm going to get it ready for the web. So whenever I put things up on Facebook or Instagram, I put a little board on it. So Command Option C or Control Alt C, and it brings up the canvas size. I'm going to add a little border, say, so let's go 2 centimeters wide. It's going to be white. Click OK. And that's too small, so I'm going to go Command Option C again and do it 4 centimeters each way. Hit return. Again, that's a bit better. You see a little border there, and I'm going to go to File and to my PhotoZoom Pro 7. PhotoZoom Pro 7, come on. Let's go. And I don't want to update yet. I'm going to make my height 2048 pixels high, and I'm downsizing it, and I may just click that on, add a little bit of sharpening. Click OK. If you haven't got PhotoZoom Pro 7, go do yourself a favor and go out and get it. It's an awesome program. So there's our leaf. It's been resized. All I need to do now is go File, Edit, Convert to Profile, and make sure that we set the destination space as sRGB, okay, from DCAM3. And that means when it goes on the web, it'll look great. So there we have it. I then go Command Shift S to save as, and I'll save it as a JPEG. And click Save, and I'll make it quality 10. And click OK, and then that's the file I upload to the net. So this is how I edit my Huawei photos. That's just sort of gives you an idea. Now this is hanging in my gallery, this image. It's 30 by 40 inches, and it's quite incredible that something that you can put in your pocket, it's got a tiny little lens, can make a photo that actually is relevant and will sit nicely in a gallery space alongside photos from real cameras. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. Cheers, guys.